Welcome to the Birding Life Youth Podcast, the show where we talk to young birders to find out what makes them tick. This is episode 14 of the Birding Life Youth Podcast, and we had the awesome opportunity to chat to Joshua Olszewski. We had a wonderful chat about the recent birding trip that he's been on, as well as some of the really awesome birds that he managed to see. So without further ado, please welcome Joshua. All right, I just want to welcome Josh and Mark to the show. Welcome.
How's it going?
Thanks, Chris. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's always good to hear Mark's voice. Let's start off with the usual question, Josh. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? And how did we come about meeting?
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I'm 21 years old. I'm a Stellenbosch resident. I live down here in Cape Town. And I've been birding for basically my entire life from the time I was a young kid. And I'm currently I'm technically a student, but I'm doing my Fugaza at the moment.
Okay. And what is that? I don't want to mispronounce the word and then cause like a bleep to go in the podcast.
Yeah, it's Fugaza. It's a weird acronym. It's FGASA. It's the Field Guiding Association of South Africa. So it's the body that you go through when you want to do any qualification to become a field guide, a tourist guide, a game ranger, anything of that sort in South Africa. So I'm currently working on my level 1, which is the minimum qualification you need to be a field guide in South Africa.
Awesome. And where are you planning to become a field guide? Are you planning to stay where you are, or are you planning to travel South Africa?
Ideally, I would love to get in with one of the international birding tour companies like Rock Jumper or Eco Tours or any company like that. So ideal situation would be to just have my base here in Cape Town and then do tours wherever I am to be had, internationally or locally. That's definitely the end goal for me right now.
Well, we're holding thumbs. You're going to get that job. All right. So I'm going to hand over to Mark. Mark has some questions for you. So let's hear what he's got to say.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Chris. So, Josh, you have been pretty busy birding over the last while since your previous podcast on the Birding Life podcast. This is your first one on the youth. You just got back home from a birding and herping trip in Limpopo. Tell us a bit how that was and where you went.
For sure. Thanks, Mark. So I actually just came back yesterday from, it was, I think, roughly a week and a half, 2 weeks. Pretty long birding trip through northern Limpopo with 2 of my friends from Durban. Just kind of as for me, as a clean up, if you will, a last ditch attempt at cleaning up the last few birds I still needed from Limpopo. So we did quite a long route. We went from Blouberg. We stayed in Blouberg Nature Reserve for about 3 nights. Then from there we went up to Mapungubwe National Park for 2 nights. Then down into the Serpensberg, Louis Tricard for 2 nights, into Punta Maria for 4 nights, and back down to Kloof for 2 nights as well. So yeah, it was quite a long trip.
Sure. Yeah, that is quite a long trip. And you obviously covered a lot of ground and got some good birding done. You and I were chatting a bit earlier, and you were showing off to me about some interesting birds you got. But could you tell us some of the highlights maybe for each destination or area that you went to? Because, I was quite excited about what you found.
Absolutely. I think every spot that we went to, we had some thrilling birds. So I think in Blouberg, I think probably the standout bird in Blouberg was probably 3-banded Corsa. We were very fortunate to be able to get a couple of those birds in that reserve.
That's a big bogey bird from you, so well done.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it was amazing, and it was great because we didn't actually see the Corsair again for the rest of the trip. So, but it was lucky because we got a couple of them just driving around one night in the more open section of the reserve. We got a few, which was really, really amazing. From there, we went to a spot near the border of Botswana. That's a known spot for boulder chats, but it's still within Southern African borders, which is pretty amazing. And not a lot of people know that boulder chat's actually quite a reliable bird in South Africa, because I think most people just do a Zim trip and then get it with a whole lot of other cool Miombo birds. But it was really nice getting that bird in South Africa. And then I think the other bird from that area that was really, really cool was the collared flycatcher that pitched up there, I think 2 or 3 days later. We were staying in Mapungubwe at the time, but we actually were coming back down to All Days because we had to get fuel. And then on the way down, we heard news of the collared flycatcher.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was really, really like perfect timing. So just after breakfast, we just shot through and we joined one of their little drives that they, Limpoquena, that's the name of the place, they had put in place, just like on the couple hourly drives to go out and see the bird. So I just went there, got the bird quick, and then just shot back up to Mapungubwe straight afterwards. And then, yeah, in Mapungubwe itself, I'm just think, I mean, I didn't get any new birds in the park itself, but I mean, the birding was just amazing. Along the river, this was actually quite a cool sighting from that park, was along the river, we had quite an abundance of common cuckoos, which is, I mean, it's not actually a common bird in South Africa.
Yeah, cool. Quite an ironic name down here.
Yeah, extremely. Yeah, African cuckoo, which is its look-alike, is supposed to be far more common. But we had them all along the Limpopo River there in the park, and even at Limpoquena, which was the spot where the collared flycatcher was, because that reserve is on the Limpopo River as well. We had quite a few common cuckoos there as well. And then even when we shot across to Kruger, along the Luvuvu there, I think we had about 2 or 3 common cuckoos, which was really, really amazing seeing so many of them. But yeah, we first started seeing the numbers of them in Mapungubwe. Then from there, we went down to Serpentsburg, and by far the standout bird there was the blue-spotted wood dove. We managed to connect with one on I think it was our second morning there. And it was the day before the Cyclone Eloise was rolling in. And literally, we got up super early that morning. We got a spot for the dove from Daniel Engelbrecht, who's a very, very good young bird up there. And no, he's also been on this podcast. And he gave us a spot. We went there first thing in the morning, got the dove, and just after we got the dove, it started pouring, and we couldn't do anything for the rest of our time in Serpentsburg.
Wow, so you're very lucky, eh?
Yeah, no, so because we were just glad that we got the dove before the downpour. So yeah. But from there, we went across to Punda, and that we drove through basically the part of the cyclone that moved over northern Limpopo when we were going into Kruger. Fortunately, it was just a lot of rain. There wasn't exactly any like hectic weather. But what the rain had kind of done was it had flooded and messed up a lot of the dirt roads in Kruger. So for those the first day and a half, 2 days that we were in Kruger, the majority of the dirt roads were closed, which was a bit unfortunate because it meant very limited access for us for those 2 days. But it wasn't a big problem. I mean, the whole park was basically underwater and everything was just green and lush, and every patch of grassland was turned into a floodplain there. So there was lesser moorhens and dwarf bittern and, I mean, harlequin quails like you cannot believe, like really, really good numbers of those sort of floodplain kind of birds. We had great painted snipes, and we had lots of monotonous larks as well, which funnily enough, that was a lifer for me on this trip. And it was really, really amazing. And then as soon as the dirt roads were open, we had one dirt road, I think it's the Kloppenfontein road. It goes between Punda and the main Punda Pafuri tar road. And I think on the second day, we were driving back down that road to get back to camp in the late afternoon because we had to get back into camp. And as we had the windows down, and we passed this very, very small flay, and we were missioning, we weren't going slow. And then as we passed it, we heard this call, and the three of us all kind of like registered that it was a crake rail rallied type of call. But we couldn't really place it, so we just reversed back to the flay and just took a second to place it, and then I recognized it was a striped crake. It was the contact call. And from then on, for the rest of those like following day or so, it was a matter of just trying to find this bird. That became our number one priority. So what we ended up doing was so that afternoon or the rest of that afternoon, we couldn't stick around to try and see it because obviously we had to get back to camp before they closed the gates. So the following day, we went straight back to that wetland and we staked it out for the morning, but we had to move on just so we didn't waste all of our time at that day at that spot because we had other birds to see. So then we went out to Pafuri and birded around there for a bit and came back around midday, and we just sat there and literally just like looked at this flay, and it took us a while. I did beforehand ask a couple of other birders I know who've had experience with striped crakes on like, how to see them, like if it's just a waiting game, and if they had any like tips or advice, on how to find this bird. But basically everyone came back with, it's a matter of waiting. And I know I asked my friend Dylan Vasapoli, he said that in the evenings they become more active. So, and that actually turned out to be true. So, we sat there from much earlier than we should have. We got there about 1:30, and we just sat there through the whole whole afternoon, sorry. And around, I think, 3:00, then we got visuals of her moving through the grass, like about once or twice. And then we did get a little flyby from her, which was quite nice. And I managed to click a photo of that as well, which ended up being in the rarities report, which was super, super cool. And that immediately became like the highlight bird of the trip. Like we all undoubtedly agreed that was like the number one bird of the trip. So, and I mean, just as a cherry on the cake, the next day we were driving up to Pafuri again, and we had a corn crake on the side of the road. So we all basically completed our crakes on this trip, which is really, really amazing. And I think from there those were like the main good birds we got in Kruger. We also did get some cool things like masked swallow. We got grey-headed parrots in good numbers around the camp. Loads of raptors. All the migrants were in good numbers. All the rollers and bee eaters, and we scanned every southern carmine bee eater in the hopes of picking up a northern carmine, to no avail, but we did try. And I mean, the time in the park under conditions like that was truly phenomenal and very memorable. Sadly, no sooty terns, as a cyclone had brought in. We didn't get any of them, sadly, but it was okay. From there, it was 2 nights in Kloof, which was also really, really amazing. We got in touch with Daniel when we were there for those 2 days, and we went through Woodbush. We got the black-fronted bushshrike. We got Bathawk in New Agatha. We got honest chats in Sanin. We got tree pipit in the Volkberg as well, which was really, really amazing. We got about 3 tree pipits there. And it was an amazing, amazing kind of like end to the trip. And then actually on the day we drove back, we drove through Polokwane and we stopped in the Polokwane Game Reserve. And we got short-clawed lark, and finally got my olive tree warbler after years and years of just listening to it and not seeing it. And then we just headed back to Joburg, and the next day my mates Nick and Darren headed down to Durbs and twitched a white cheek tern the next day. So No. So it's been a very memorable, very eventful past 2 weeks. Yeah, that was incredible.
Sure. Well, that's hard work paid off. So well done on those great birds. That's really fantastic.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Awesome. And do you still have a bogey bird?
Yeah, for sure. I think at this point, I mean, I busted olive tree warbler, so I think now it's turned into pilot harrier. Pilot harrier. I still don't know how. I haven't bumped into that bird yet. I remember when we arrived in Kruger on this trip, and we got to the reception, the Punta Maria reception. I bumped into one of my friends there, Bradwin, and he said that literally like a few days before, he got a pilot harrier and 2 steppe eagles between, I think he said between Punta Maria and Babalala, which is about halfway down to Shingwadzi from Punta Maria. And we drove that road. Sure as we had tons of Wahlberg's eagles, tawny eagles, amber falcons, lesser kestrels, lots and lots of raptors, and no pilot harriers and no steppe eagle. Steppe eagle is also becoming a slight bogey of mine. So yeah, but I think number one at this point is probably pilot harrier.
Yeah, some of those birds are like really on my wish list. I actually scratch that. Not some of the birds, all the birds are on my wish list.
You'll get up there. You'll get up there one day.
Yeah, same here.
Except for the white cheek tern.
Yeah, no, I mean
white cheek tern was fun.
Yeah,
like that one's done.
Yeah.
You didn't manage to connect with the greater frigate bird or the lesser.
No, Flip. Those birds all showed up further south than where we were. I think the most northern of those. Yeah, I think the most northerly of one of those tropical birds that was blown in there was a city tern between Mapani and Shingwadzi. And that was when the roads were still flooded. Apparently, at one point, the road between Punta and Shingwadzi, there was like a hectic flood going over it, and they actually didn't know if the road was still like under the water, so they were waiting for the water to die down so they could check if the road was still there. So we were definitely not going to be able to go and see that tern. And funnily enough, when we drove into the park, there were 3 sooty terns that were seen flying. I think that was also between Punta Maria and Shingwadzi, but we were too busy on like trying to get to our accommodation, But yeah, so sadly none of those, but it's okay. That wasn't exactly our main priority for wanting to go to Kruger.
Oh well, next time.
Next cyclone.
Thanks so much for the chat, Josh. It was really awesome. I really enjoyed hearing about your trip. For those people who haven't had a chance to do any big major travels, I think we're just living vicariously through you now.
No, it's awesome. I always say, with this past year with COVID, the second I got the opportunity to go out, I really jumped at it. So this trip is, I think, really made up for this past years not being able to go out as much. So yeah.
Awesome. So many happy birding trips next, and hope you get many laughers still.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. You too.
Cheers, Josh. It was nice to chat to you again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Once again, I just want to thank Joshua for an awesome podcast. It was really awesome hearing his stories about the birds that he's seen and the awesome opportunity he had to see the striped crake. I just want to thank my co-host Mark Estek as well for an awesome podcast. It's always great to have him on the show. If you enjoyed this podcast or you would like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, be sure to like and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast player. And be sure to follow us on social media. Until next time, happy birding.